Welcome to the Heal Podcast. I'm Kelly Noonan Gores, and every week I speak to the leading doctors, healers, spiritual teachers, and scientists to find out what is truly possible when it comes to healing. I also interview real people with extraordinary healing stories. My philosophy is, what's possible for one is possible for all. Hello, everyone. Well, this is the last episode for a while before I go on a little hiatus. So I figured it would be best to do a solo interview to talk about how this last 6 months have been, why I'm taking a hiatus, and also answer some of the questions that you asked on social media. Okay, so what a long, strange trip the last 2 years have been, eh? So let me give you a little background about what inspired the podcast and led me to where we are today. So right before the pandemic started, I released the Heal book in late October of 2019. At the time, I told myself I would do 2 months of publicity and then take a much needed break after years of making and then the releasing of Heal, writing the book, and having a baby. Let's just say my creative juices had run dry. Well, I certainly didn't expect the world to shut down to give me the downtime I was asking for. So be careful what you wish for, as they say. And while there were some silver linings that came with the lockdown, like an immediate removal of any unnecessary social aspects of life, the unnecessary busyness of life, more quality time with our families, there was also the addition of much suffering in the world, crazy levels of fear, anxiety, and confusion. And then, of course, the isolation of our most vulnerable loved ones. After about 9 months of navigating the pandemic and spending quality time with Riley, I started getting inspired to do a podcast. So many people were doing lives and sharing what they knew and just supporting each other. And I felt like I should share what I had learned about the immune system and felt like I should contribute to the conversation and continue to offer inspiring content to the Heal audience. And it's funny, when Heal first came out, it was very well received by the obvious audience, the wellness community. And then a year later, it premiered on Netflix and it reached a whole new layer of people, a much broader audience. And then the pandemic hit and a whole new audience, another layer, came to rely on it for hope in a dark time. It's been really awesome to witness Heal take on a life of its own. And that is mostly due to divine timing. Which is certainly one of the many aspects of Heal's success that I had nothing to do with. So feeling very late to the podcast game, I felt at that point, everybody and their sister Susie had a podcast. I started to talk to potential production partners, other friends that had podcasts, learn from their experience. And that was a year ago in January of 2021. It took a few months to iron out the partnership, plan the launch date and queue up the interviews. And then on May 6th, 2021, the Heal podcast was born with our wonderful producing partners at Dear Media. Well, I had no idea how much work goes into producing a podcast. I just thought I'd got to sit around and, chat with amazing, interesting people. Well, my husband tells me I need to learn to delegate better. And while that is true, I'm still in recovery for perfectionism, and I haven't quite mastered the art of delegation. So anyways, fast forward 6 months and 38 episodes later, I am absolutely pooped. I love working. I love creating. I love contributing and helping people. But I realized that as I was engulfed in my work and prepping and editing and doing all the things, I was stressed out and I wasn't really present when playing with my daughter. It's hard to be present and totally fluid and patient with the big emotions of a toddler when you have deadlines looming and a never-ending to-do list. And on top of that, the last few months, I've been experiencing what everyone else in the world is experiencing in some form of another, COVID fatigue and frustration. It's all just too much. And it really just emotionally fried me. I mean, it affected my sleep. The last 3 months have been really intense for me. And because so many of you asked, I'll talk briefly about my views on that in a bit. But in summary, As much as I have truly loved interviewing and sharing the brilliant minds and beautiful hearts of the experts that we've had on the podcast, I need to take a break to recharge my battery. I also know too much about the subconscious programming that occurs between the ages of 0 and 7 years old, which I've talked about at length with Bruce Lipton. So as I became painfully aware that I was programming my child with stress, non-presence, and other disempowering programs, I knew I needed to find balance again. I'm burnt out from the weekly release schedule combined with the emotional stress that mandates, masks, testing, fear, shaming, othering, and polarization has brought. And I just haven't been able to take care of my needs of solitude, rest, play, and good sleep. And most importantly, the needs of my daughter. So I'm pushing pause on the podcast to do just that. I'm going to recharge my battery, replenish my creative juices, and be present and playful with my precious 2.5-year-old daughter. Now, of course, I'm torn because part of me feels like I'm abandoning my audience in a time of great need. But I have to trust that by honoring my needs, my work will only become deeper, more authentic, and grounded in the long run. So I'm excited to play with Riley more and rest and read books, which I love to do, and perhaps learn a language, paint, write songs like I did, just things I did for creative expression growing up that don't have pressure, don't have deadlines, and just live in a little bit more of flow and freedom. Well, hopefully after a little R&R, I can come back re-inspired to continue the podcast, but while keeping a much more manageable and healthy schedule and balanced life. So enough about that. I hope that's clear and helpful. Let's get to some of the questions you guys asked me. All right. So number one, and I get this a lot, will there be a heal too? Oh man, I'm sad to say I don't feel in my heart at this moment that I'm going to do another heal film. It's just too hard. There's so much information to share. There's so many inspiring stories to highlight. There's so many amazing doctors and healers and shamans and amazing technology and new healing modalities that are cropping up all over the world that it would be impossible and just too difficult for me to, choose what I would put into a 90-minute format again. It was hard enough to cut down, 25 hours of interviews to put in 90 minutes for Heal One. That said, my producing partner, Adam, what's up, Shomer? We've talked, with different production companies and we've, approached different networks and stuff about potentially developing an episodic. So it's ongoing, think of like a Netflix series where we, a la Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown. He traveled the world and highlighted different cultures and culinary art. And it was a really well done show by CNN. And I thought that's a great format for a heal show because there's, again, so much to highlight and so many inspiring stories to share and so many different cultural practices that we can adopt and learn from or travel to. So I think there's so much to highlight, and I think it would be much more conducive to do that in an episodic ongoing format. So if you work for Netflix in development, give me a call. So number two, what's the secret to juggling it all? Raising your daughter, be a great wife, a businesswoman, a visionary, and to, look so healthy and vibrant. Do you follow a strict plan every day? How do you get it all in balance? Well, let me tell you, I don't know the answer to that question because clearly I am way out of balance right now. I'm barely resourced to do this podcast, to be honest. I was up all night tossing and turning, just things going through my head. What should I say? What should I not say? So I don't have the answer to that. I'm not a master. I'm doing the best I can. This is my first time as a parent, and I feel like you're just like holding on for dear life. And that being said, I have a lot of help. I have a nanny. I have assistants. I have so much support with my Heal team. And even with all of that, I'm still drowning and only have one child. My hat goes off to all the moms and dads out there who have multiple children. You guys are heroes, especially right now, what we're navigating. So I don't have the answer. All I can say is, I'm just practicing a lot of grace. I'm doing the best I can. And I'm really leaning into my daily practices, the things that I know I need to maintain resilience, because we're all being inundated right now with fear, confusion, just a lot of BS. And we have to have those daily practices, and it's going to be different for everybody. And I'll share some of my favorites that keep us resilient. I mean, good sleep is one of them. So figure out how you can, find the amount of sleep you need and how to get the deepest sleep, because that is when we rest and repair. And without good sleep, a whole cascade of problems come. Our fuse is short with our families. We don't rest and repair. We are stressed easier. So sleep is key. For me, meditation is medication for me, and movement is medicine for me as well. So if I'm stressed, if I'm burnt out, I just do the bare minimum. I mean, I have to meditate every day. I have to. It's for my sanity. I'm inundated with information. So much of it is negative or just noise, and all of that fills up and accumulates in your mind. And meditation for me is a way to disconnect from tech, shut out all that stimulation, shut out all that mental stress. I love how Marianne Williamson in Heal likens it to mental hygiene. We shower the gunk off our skin every day in the shower. Or I hope you do. No, I'm kidding. But mentally, we need to just decompress all the accumulation of stress and tension and thoughts and fears and anxieties in our mind. And meditation for me is the tool that I use. Some people can do prayer. Some people can do just, silence in nature. But meditation reconnects me to my higher self, my internal guidance system. It's practical. It lowers my blood pressure, deepens my breath, and takes me out of the chronic stress response of fight or flight, which we're all in right now. I mean, we are in it. We're in it in normal life because we're inundated with so much information from this 24/7 news cycle and social media. But then, this last 2 years, it's been even more exacerbated. So meditation takes me out of the chronic stress response so my body can heal, reset, and I just take the lid off the boiling pot of my mind and release all the pressure so that I have more space and expansion in my being so that I can respond to life and not just react because I'm at max capacity in my bandwidth. I hope that helps. So basically, listen to your body. What do you need the most in this moment? Do you need rest? Do you need to sweat out your frustrations, emotions? Do you need to play? Do you need to dance it out with your kids and just get silly and just like, do you need to just like turn within and get quiet and still? Do you need a bath, salt bath? So find what your tools are that that gives you the resilience you need to navigate the day. And sometimes we'll have time to practice, 2 or 3 daily practices, maybe 4 or 5. And some days we just have 20 minutes and we've got to pick the one that's going to help us most. On any given day, it could be movement and exercise for me. On the next day, it could just be going for a walk outside and breathing the fresh air, getting the sunshine on my face, taking in nature, reconnecting with nature, or meditation. If I find 15 minutes just to do that reset, and it gives me the strength and the presence to show up as a better mom. So, we're all doing the best we can. Grace, 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 and just lean into those practices and prioritize what you need so that you can be resilient, healthy, and peace of mind to show up better for your children. Hope that helps. All right. So can you expand on the subconscious programming between the ages of 0 and 7? And I'll touch on it a little bit, but I recommend everybody go listen to the Bruce Lipton podcast episode or read his book, The Biology of Belief. So he talks about how between the ages of in utero and 7, the brain is developing in such a way, and different brain waves come online. And I believe between the ages of 0 and 7, your brain is in theta, and it's basically just a sponge taking in all the information, energetic imprinting, behaviors, energy, belief systems of your caretaker and your caretakers and your environment. And that becomes a subconscious programming, the system that you operate from for the rest of your life. It colors the lens through which you look through. And then based on that lens, so your environment and your perception of the environment then determines the signals that turn on and off genes. And that's the science of epigenetics. So, one of the most empowering things I've learned is that we're not victims of our genes, but that, Bruce Lipton is one of the kind of discoverers of the science of epigenetics. And that says that our genes are just a blueprint, and our perception of the environment and our environment are what signal the genes to turn on and off. So that's why in so much chronic illness, we can change our lifestyle and change our programming and change our stress levels, and all of that will then turn on and off different genes. It'll turn on healthy genes, turn off, kind of disease genes and things like that. So it's very empowering to learn about it. For example, I can give you an example. So subconscious programming. If you grow up in a village in India and you are raised around snakes, and your dad is like a snake performer or charmer, and you've learned to be with snakes, revere snakes, they're good omens, you love snakes. Then another person grew up and their dad got bit by a snake, or someone, got poisoned by a snake, and they have a fear of snakes. So the two of those people are hiking one day in beautiful sunny California, and a rattlesnake goes across their path. Well, the boy that grew up in India knows exactly how to be around snakes, understands the language that snakes speak, and looks at it as a good omen. So he's relaxed in his body's parasympathetic nervous system. He's actually has oxytocin and dopamine and good neurochemistry released from his brain, because he's like, oh my gosh, this is the good omen I was looking for. The other person has a fear of snakes, immediately goes into fight or flight. Stress hormones and neurochemicals are, flooding from his brain into his body, and he's in full fight or flight mode. So same exact stimulus, because of their subconscious programming and the way they were raised, they both have different lenses they're looking through, and same exact stimulus, two completely opposite biological responses in their body. So, and different epigenetic factors that are, some are going to turn on and off different things in their bodies. So also in the film, another thing, it's so funny because we spend our adult lives, part of our healing journey, a lot of it is unpacking, the belief systems, the limiting and disempowering belief systems that we adopted from other people. So we've got the subconscious programming that we're operating from our whole life. It's subconscious, so we're not even aware that we have these belief systems, and they're not even ours. We adopted them from our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, whoever was the big influences in our life. And so, part of our healing process as adults is to become aware, to bring those belief systems and constructs and, programming to the surface so that we can change and heal them. And like Bruce Lipton says, 75% of the programs that we download between the ages of 0 and 7 are negative and disempowering. So it's an uphill climb, but if we are conscious parents and we understand this, nobody's going to get it perfect. We're all going to mess with our child in one way. That's their karma. That's their journey to unpack down the line. But we can be more conscious on the kind of programs and environment we're creating for our children, because they're just soaking it up like a sponge, not only our behaviors and our actions, but our energy and the intentions behind it. And they are observant. Oh my gosh, they're like sponges. So one more example before I move on. Elizabeth, she had stage 4 cancer. She was in HEAL. She adopted, because of something that happened when she was a child, a belief system that she was pathetic. And it was a trauma. And we can adopt new belief systems. It doesn't have to be between the ages of 0 and 7. We could have a trauma at 13 or 25 and adopt a new belief system program, because the trauma was so painful that we just downloaded a new belief. And so the belief that she was pathetic, she's looking through a lens of pathetic. And when you're looking through a lens, all you can see, you filter out all the things that don't align with that belief, and you just only see evidence to support that you're pathetic, which is why in life, Elizabeth went on to attract relationships and circumstances that reaffirmed that she was pathetic. So other beautiful things might have been happening or coming to her, but she wasn't even aware or open to them because she's looking through a lens of I am pathetic. So so when she became aware of that and started to work and heal, and there's different modalities that Bruce Lipton talks about in the podcast, and so many healing modalities that can, work with whether it's EMDR or hypnosis and so many more that can reprogram your subconscious beliefs. But it's about discovering what these beliefs are that are holding us back and then replacing them with new beliefs that are more empowering and aligned with our higher self and spirit and true nature. I hope that helps. Again, don't stress. Look, I am doing the best I can. I just spent 6 months programming my child with stress, and I'm sure she's going to be okay. And now I can kind of course correct and be a little bit more conscious and present in what I'm, programming her with going forward. So grace. Do the best you can. Kids are amazingly resilient. All right. So the next question is in regards to what role nutrition plays in disease prevention, because this listener, she read Anita Moorjani's book, Dying to Be Me, and, her shift in consciousness and healing had nothing to do with nutrition. It was all, about coming from fear, and that created the energetic environment in her body where cancer thrives. So she's confused and wants to know a little bit more about nutrition. Well, Kelly Turner's research is something that I turn to all the time. And it was specifically to cancer and people who'd spontaneously healed from late stage and end stage cancer. And one of her 9 healing essentials, which has now become 10 because she's added movement and exercise as the 10th one. One of her 10 healing essentials is radically changing your diet and using herbs and supplements. So nutrition is foundational for health and healing. And everybody is bio-individual. There's no one size fits all diet or recipe for healing. You've got to find what's right for you and your specific circumstances. But I think that, for mental health and physical health, the health of our microbiome, we are a super organism made up of human cells and microbes in community, and our immune system is in our gut. The health of our immune system is dependent on the balance of our microbiome, and all of this is affected by what we eat. So overall philosophy is when you're on a healing journey, you may have to be a little bit stricter and more regimented because you need to eat the most nutrient dense foods, remove anything that's inflammatory, and also understand that digestion takes so much energy that we could be using for healing. So we want to lighten our load of the energetic burden that we're putting on our body through digestion. That's why fasting under the right supervision can be so effective in healing, because what energy you were spending on digesting and breaking down food, you can now free up for, repairing and regenerating tissues. So nutrition is foundational. It's absolutely a part. And even though Anita Moorjani had a shift in consciousness and this kind of spontaneous, miraculous story, now that she lives her life, she's conscious about creating an environment in your body where cancer cannot thrive. And Dr. Nalini Chilkov talks about that. Dr. Mark Hyman, Mark Emerson, Uma Naidu, a lot of great nutrition episodes in the Heal podcast that address, how nutrition affects mental health and physical health. I love Michael Pollan's philosophy. He says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And when he talks about food, it's something that's, food that's found in nature, whether it's an animal, a plant, all of the like nuts, seeds, legumes, things that are not in a package. So we have this chronic illness epidemic and obesity and diabetes because we have so many chemicals and preservatives in our convenience foods and our body just doesn't recognize it and can't pull nutrition. So we're just throwing our systems out of whack by eating processed foods packed with chemicals and preservatives. So whether you're on a healing journey or not, it's great to just limit processed foods, remove them altogether if you can. Like he says, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And if you're on a healing journey, you may need to be strict for a certain amount of time to clean up the issues and allow your body to regenerate, repair, and change the inner environment and heal. And then what I found is, majority of the time you can get back to more of a relaxed kind of diet that brings you more joy. But for a period of time, you might have to be a little bit more regimented. So yeah, eat close to nature. If you eat animals, make sure they're eating what their natural diet is. Make sure that they're raised in a humane, open, natural environment in a humane way. And eat as close to as nature intended as possible, which means in season, and yeah. So along those lines, the next question is, how do we know what the right diet is for us? And this is a great question. There's so much confusing information and conflicting information out there. Well, Mark Hyman's episode is actually great for this. I think it's always good to work with a nutritionist or a functional medicine doctor or naturopath that can test you and give you the proper testing to find food sensitivities, blood levels, and different things going on in your blood so that they know what kind of diet you need to take. Maybe you have too much inflammation, they need an anti-inflammatory diet or protocol. And a functional medicine doctor, naturopath, and nutritionist can give you the feedback through the blood labs. And I think that's a great launching point. Again, there's no one size fits all diet. What works for me may not work for you. And it's based on how we were raised, our environment, where we live, our blood type, our stress levels. So many things go into what works for our body. And you know what? It doesn't have to cost an arm or a leg. Of course, like organic, people say, well, I can't afford organic. And there is a whole nother issue about equality and access to some of these healing modalities and better, higher quality foods. But I love that in Mark Hyman's episode, he talks about how he worked with a family in the food desert of, I think, Virginia, impoverished family that were all obese, lots of health issues. And within a month, they lost a ton of weight and reversed the diabetes and chronic illnesses that they had. And it was only on a few dollars a day and buying just real food from like whatever they could get their hands on. I think it was like a convenience store or grocery store. It's a wonderful story. And it just shows that so much is possible. And even if it seems like you don't have access to the highest quality of food, you can do so much by just eating real food. And anyways, listen to Mark Hyman's story about that. It's really inspiring. So what is my philosophy? What do I do personally? A lot of people want to know that. I would call myself a qualitarian. So I like to eat just clean sources of food, as close to nature as possible. I am very blessed that, I live in California. We have access to so much great produce in different seasons. And so, I just eat as in season and local as much as I can. I do eat meat. So I eat grass-fed beef, but ultimately I listen to my body. On any given day, my body, sometimes depending on the time of the month or whatever it is, my body is telling me what it's craving, what it wants. And it's not an addictive craving. It's I feel a little weak. Maybe I do need some red meat today. So it's taken me years, but I've cultivated this awareness, and my body talks to me through symptoms, through, lethargy, through energy, through emotions and mood. And I've just paid so close attention to how different foods make me feel. and any sort of symptoms that come up after I eat them. So I just encourage everybody to cultivate, get the feedback from the blood labs, cultivate self-awareness. Your body doesn't lie. Your body's always telling you what it needs, and what is aligned with it and what is not. And, and then just, again, like I am at a place, because I'm not on the healing journey, that I can cheat a little, and I find joy in foods that may not, be the healthiest options for me. But because I'm eating clean 80 to 90% of the time, those times when I cheat, I don't beat myself up. I really enjoy them. And Anita Morjani talks about this too. She eats ice cream now. She used to fear that eating sugar would cause cancer. Well, she got the cancer. Now she doesn't live in that fear anymore. So she indulges in that ice cream and really enjoys that experience, because food is love. Food is joy, So, so really, really just, being grateful for your food is another aspect of it. There's a reason we say grace before dinner and bless our food. It's because, again, everything is energy. So if we are mindful while we're eating, it matters less kind of what you're eating and more of the state that you're in. So if you're present and mindful and grateful, that's going to be a completely different processing experience than if you are stressed about food because you're fearing that it's going to cause cancer or make you fat, or, so there's so much psychological awareness that needs to be developed around, eating as well. So, so much in there. There is no one size fits all diet, but if you start to cultivate awareness and you get the proper feedback, you can find what works best for your body. Okay, I hope that was helpful. All right, so what are your daily practices in eating and workout philosophies? I just talked about the eating philosophies. But daily practices, I mentioned before, but I love meditation. It's just key for my mental and spiritual health. It gives me the expansion and space in my mind so that I can respond to life rather than react. Sometimes I do transcendental meditation, which I took a course in 13 years ago. So I have my advanced mantra, and I just do mantra-based meditation. And that's more of like a spiritual connection, and just like I drop in and really get like deep levels of rest in my body and psyche. And other times I do kind of Joe Dispenza's manifestation meditation. So again, it depends on any given day or any given mood and the amount of time I have. The manifestation meditations that I do is really just like consciously using this beautiful instrument of your mind to visualize things that you desire. So whether it's health or healing in your body, whether it's a new home, whether it's a new relationship, and you just sit quiet and turn within and get into a meditative state after some deep breaths. And then you visualize this thing that you want. And the key in Joe Dispenza's teaching is not only just visualizing it in your imagination, but feeling into the feelings that you would feel if this thing were real. And the brain doesn't know. It can't decipher what's the difference between what is real and imagined. That's why if you imagine a lemon in your hand, put it on a cutting board, you slice it open, the juices are flowing from the lemon, and you pick up the lemon in your mind's eye and you lick it. I mean, your brain, there's no lemon in my hand right now, but my brain is sending signals to my mouth to water and pucker because it has that remembrance. And so the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. So if you spend some time, if you have the luxury of having extra time where you can do these manifestation meditations and really just engage your imagination. And, if we don't engage our imagination constantly, we're going to constantly focus on the worst case scenario, which is where fear, worry, anxiety comes from. We're picturing what we don't want to happen. We're stressing about it. That's our default. That's our survival brain. But we can consciously take the reins of our brain and exercise it to imagine what we do want. And the magic, piece of that recipe that Joe Dispenza discovered and worked for him to heal his spine was to feel the feelings. And so you have the picture in your mind, and then you got the feelings in your heart, and get them in a state of coherence. And that is the recipe that starts to manifest miracles in your life. And it works for me. And just at the very basic level, feeling into those feelings of gratitude and excitement and joy and love of having the things that you desire. I mean, in the moment, in the present, even if that thing is not actually happening in reality, in your body, that thing is happening and you're feeling amazing. You're releasing that positive neurochemistry in your body. So that's one of my favorite tools, is just kind of visualization, gratitude, feeling into the future that you desire. And then, like I said, movement is medicine to me. When we move our body, we detox so many toxins throughout our sweat and our breath. I process so many emotions. If I'm frustrated, angry, joyous, I mean, I process so many emotions when I do exercise, whether it's strength or cardio or whatever. I know a lot of people who are starting out to lose weight, just walking. Walking is tremendously fat burning, and you don't have to do a ton. Just walk every day. It's so good for your lymph system and for your spirit and for your mental health. I mean, people move out of depression. They said the first thing they do is just make themselves walk outside, just get themselves off the couch, out of the dark room, and just walk, move your body. It can start to do wonders for your mental health and physical health. So movement is medicine for me. A couple others is, gratitude work, which is more exercises around feeling into that future that you desire and just feeling the gratitude. It's such a powerful tool. And then earthing, we're bombarded with all this technology, which is so awesome and connects us all. But nature is so healing. And there's, I talk about it so much in the Heal book, but just putting your bare feet in the earth, whether it's the sand or the grass or the dirt, just reconnecting and grounding to the earth and getting that negative ionic charge is so healing physically and mentally. It actually speeds wound healing. Many studies have been done where if you have a window, if you're recovering in a hospital and you have a window that looks out over some green space, you heal, twice as fast as someone who doesn't have that window. And same with just putting your feet into the bare earth. So those are some of my tools that I love. And then breath work. Wim Hof was on the podcast. I suggest you listen to him, or Gwen Dittmar also talks about breath work, and breath is a tool that we have. Our bodies are these amazing instruments, and we can just tap into things like our breath to just change the state of our body, mind, and spirit. And so those are some of my favorite tools. And just something I want to add here, because I know so many people are struggling with weight or emotional eating. I have friends that just continue to struggle with weight. And a lot of therapists have told this one particular person, oh, you must have been abused because you're holding this weight on your body, and she's like, I was never abused, because sometimes if you have trauma or abused, you hold extra weight because you want to subconsciously repel people so you don't get in harm's way again. That's something I've learned from different therapists over the years. But she's like, I wasn't abused. I just cannot drop this, 10 pounds or whatever it is, 20 pounds. And, I struggled in my 20s with just this extra layer of weight. And when you're an actor, you can't afford that extra layer because the camera throws on the extra layer on top of that. So, and the rejection that you face in auditions all the time, it's just you're really self-conscious about your looks as an actor. And I'm kind of glad that I've moved on from that career. It's very difficult. My heart goes out to all of you actors out there. But what worked for me was a shift in my consciousness around my love and acceptance of myself. And it's counterintuitive, because a lot of people think if they look in the mirror, our natural thing, if we look in the mirror and we're overweight or we want to look different, our natural, reaction is kind of just resistance and beating yourself up and criticism and unhappiness with what we see in the mirror. And unfortunately, that resistance to what is, that lack of self-acceptance is what holds you in that energy. And it's almost impossible to change your state. And if you do through some radical diet or addiction to exercise or whatever, until you change that love and acceptance for yourself, you're never going to shift your body and your physicality for good. It's always going to come. It's going to always be a battle, and it's a drain. What worked for me is to just start to love and accept myself, how I was, and just every day, just really just treat myself with love. Notice the self-criticism that was going in my head about my looks, about where I was in my career, whatever it was, I was beating myself, and just start to just quiet that voice and just replace it with acceptance and love. And a lot of, part of me resisted that because I was like, I don't want to accept and love what I see in the mirror and where I'm at, because then that signals to the universe that I want to stay here. And it's actually counterintuitive. But when you start to just find something to appreciate about yourself, practice the love, be more, be gentler on yourself, and just really love and accept you from where you are. And then, make like, it's so subtle, but you start to just make subconsciously, you start to make better choices, healthier choices. And it becomes easy over time, but it starts with self-love and acceptance. If you remain in resistance and beating yourself up, you will remain in a cycle, trapped in a cycle of subconscious self-sabotage. So I'm telling you, and it feels very counterintuitive, but what worked for me, and I can say now, with whether I exercise every day for a week or don't exercise for 3 weeks because of crazy work schedule and stress, my body doesn't change that much, because I've gotten to a place where I'm not holding on to anything because I've just been beating myself up all the time. I am in love and acceptance of my body and myself, and it takes practice. But I think for people that are struggling and have tried everything and things aren't working, if you can just play with this shift, it's so subtle, but that's the only way that I've seen, or that it's the way that worked for me to get out of this subconscious cycle of self-sabotage, is to accept and start to love yourself a little bit more. May sound cliche, but it worked for me. Okay. Advice for someone who is overwhelmed with the amount of healing modalities out there. How do we know the proper healing path is for us? It's a great question. I don't have the answer for you. Only you have the answer for you. We all have this internal guidance system. This is why I truly believe that, all healing is spiritual at the end of the day, because I truly believe in that the universe is life affirming. It's always for us. It's always nudging us in the direction of our greatest unfoldment and expression. That's why sometimes we need a wake-up call of an illness or getting fired from our job. Sometimes we're not consciously making the choices that are in best alignment with our soul and our purpose here in this lifetime. And so the universe needs to knock us on our ass. So we wake up and go, oh, I see. Maybe this toxic environment isn't the best for me. Maybe I deserve something better. Maybe I need to reconnect with what fueled my joy that I left behind as a child. Maybe I need to heal this trauma, whatever it is. So the same goes for finding your healing path, your healers, your teachers. I truly believe that if you set the intention and you ask, you shall receive. And I think that a lot of it is cultivating intuition. And part of that is through meditation or prayer, just really turning out all the outside stimulation and reconnecting with your breath, and in the silence and the solitude to find that internal guidance system. And when you continue to ask, just the right books will fall off the shelf or pop out, stand out to you. Someone will introduce you to the right healer. I promise you, if you ask, you shall receive. So no one knows the answers for you. Your answers are within you. And there are doctors, just like if you break your bone, you may go to a doctor to facilitate healing because they can set the bone, but it's your body, your inner intelligence that's actually doing the healing. So ultimately, the answers and the abilities within you. And you just have to set the intention and keep asking with sincerity to, show me the way, show me the people that can help facilitate my healing. And I've seen it work for, the masters, and I've seen it happen and work in my everyday life too. So ask and you shall receive. Okay. So opinion about the vaccine and am I vaccinated? To be honest, I've tossed and turned about, how to answer this question. There is so much I want to say, but this is what I'll say. As far as my own personal vaccination status, I'm going to keep that to myself. I believe in medical freedom, and I believe that privacy is of the utmost importance for that freedom. So I'm going to keep my choice to myself. It's a very polarizing topic. I believe that given what we knew at the time and the amount of confusion and fear that was going on at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I believe that the vaccine provided a lot of relief and protection to our most vulnerable population, the elderly and the immunosuppressed. The people that I was looking through the pandemic with a very different lens. I had just come from 10 years of learning about the immune system. I had just done a film encouraging people to take the power back into their own hands, to take their health back and stop giving their power away to outside authorities. So when the pandemic hit, I was looking through a very different lens than most people, and I wasn't as fearful. And the people that I admired and were listening to, the scientists and doctors that I aligned with, all basically predicted that, this is a SARS coronavirus, albeit novel, perhaps, but, it will probably have a 2-year trajectory. It'll be very, fast and furious at the beginning and more severe. And weaken over time as coronaviruses mutate, different variants will show up. And then after about 2 years, it will just get to a point where it's so weak that it just kind of assimilates into nature and the population. And we, the healthy among us will adapt and upgrade and take into that new information and evolve. And that's how viruses have helped evolution among the animal kingdom and nature throughout time. So I just pray that Omicron is a signal of that. And, that is what I pray. There's so much more I want to say on this because of my research and my knowledge of how deeply enmeshed the pharmaceutical industry is with our medical education, our media because of advertising, conflict of interest, and the health agencies that are meant to protect us are becoming conflicted as well and have been for a while. So that is all I'll say on this. All I have to say is that I think that everybody is being motivated by fear or otherwise to protect their health and protect their freedoms. I believe that I just pray that Omicron is a signal that this thing is weakening and the pandemic is ending and it just becomes endemic. And it's a new kind of coronavirus that has evolved into a common cold and assimilated into nature and the population. And that we can all take a breath in a few months on the other side of this thing, and the fear is abated, the severity is gone, the real threat is gone. And I pray that is the case. And no matter what your stance or belief or choices, I just wish good health and vitality for everybody. And I hope that we regain our sanity and our freedom very soon. All right. So what is the biggest wellness takeaway or piece of advice that you've learned on this journey? Well, I've learned so much. And I think that I'll just go through a few of them, but there's no one size fits all model for healing. Each person has to find their unique recipe for healing. And community is a big part of sharing what works for you, and finding your community is so important to, you want to surround yourself with people that are encouraging to love and accept yourself, sharing positive and constructive information, sharing resources, and just really helping support you on your healing journey. Community is key. I've also learned that it takes courage, commitment, and responsibility on any healing journey. I mean, we are all going to be faced with painful circumstances and painful learning experiences and growth. And it's kind of our choice and our responsibility to decide how much we're going to suffer or stay in victimhood. So I think a big part of the first step is always acceptance, letting go of the resistance to what is and really accepting and saying, okay, now what? And then just remembering that we are all doing the best we can with what we know. We're doing the best we can from the level of consciousness that we're operating from. And oftentimes when we're stressed, we are just operating from our programs. And Bruce Lipton actually talks about this in his podcast, and it's beautiful because he talks about how when you're he's been able to keep this honeymoon phase alive with his partner, because they realize that when there's tension or reactivity between them, that it's not that person is a bad person. They're just reacting from their programming. They're reacting from their wound, from their pain. So, just cultivating that consciousness and really giving grace to yourself for your programming and wounds yet to be healed, and grace to others. And then of course, the thing that we say in Heal is, go get the best feedback, go get the diagnosis, find out what's going on under the hood, get your diagnosis, but don't ever accept a prognosis. Don't let any doctor, any authority tell you what's possible for you. With Kelly Turner's research, Jeffrey Rediger's research, there's so many stories of miraculous transformation and spontaneous healing. And you too are deserving and capable of having miracles in your life. So, just expand your belief about what's possible for you. We truly live in a world of infinite possibility, and you can be the person that defies odds. You could be that person that shares that miraculous story with millions when you heal. So just continue to expand and push beyond the limits of what you think is possible for you, because we do live in a world of infinite possibility. And then again, commit to your daily practices and tools. We need all the support we can get to navigate the state of the world that we're living in. And that's it. So cultivate consciousness, practices, and tools. Remember that you are deserving of miracles. You're deserving of vitality, health, and joy and happiness. And I just wish you all so many blessings in 2022. I hope this year turns out to be a phenomenal one. All right. Take care, everybody. And thank you. And we'll see you on the other side. Thank you for listening to the Heal podcast. Be sure to tune in for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. Oh, and make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. And if you feel inspired, we would love you to rate and review us so that we have the opportunity to reach more people. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram for some behind the scenes fun and more inspiration at @Heal Documentary and @Kelly Gores. Thank you so much, and be well.